Tara Brown and the Swinging London Colour Revolution by Vic Jenham, Chapter 11, Part 2. Saturday, the 23rd of April, was a big day for me. The Love and Spoonful were coming over from the European tour to play at Luggala, and everybody had promised to come. To make it as easy as possible for them to follow up on their word, I had chartered an aeroplane to take everybody to Dublin Airport, with further transport to Luggala also taken care of. Another plane was leaving simultaneously from Paris. Both planes were full, and most happening bands had sent some of their crew along. There were Brian Jones and Mick Jagger, among many others. Paul McCartney unfortunately couldn't make it, as he was busy recording songs for the Beatles' upcoming album Revolver. His brother Mike, though, was present, as were all my young, hip friends who were curious to see the famed house I had told so many stories about. I myself was not on the plane, as I had deemed it wise to come to Luggala a few days in advance, to personally see to it all preparations were on schedule. I had been after the Love and Spoonful since Do You Believe in Magic, their first big hit. I liked their laid-back innocence. It was how I often felt. I understood that having them come over for one gig in March, while they were doing a European tour in April, was a bit much. I also realized I could have them a lot cheaper, as they were nearby and making good money anyway. So I might be able to persuade them to charge me a special price for their gig, plus a party with the swinging London crowd. Guests were expected to arrive after lunch. I had taken some early acid to be sufficiently both into and completely out of things, a state of being I'd become used to since last November. It was how many were moving through reality, both in and out of it. It's what acid did to us. Doing so much acid required a certain level of trust, but that was never a problem, as most of us were complicit in the great con game that was going on and that was sold for truth all over the world. It's what made Lennon say they were more popular than Jesus, because they were. The whole Beatles hype had reached that level of insanity. Most guests made it safely to the estate, after which the fun could begin. There was hashish and acid for everyone, and lots of drink and food. I spent most of my time playing the role of the brilliant host. I'd thought of being the perfect host, the one without flaws, but decided against it. I wanted to be remembered for my occasional brilliance, not for any consistent quality. Nevertheless, I was everywhere that day, and I knew everything, thanks to my open mind, and I was as witty and wicked as I felt I could be. Rule number 1, make nobody feel unhappy, unless they explicitly ask for it. Number 2, one must always go as far as elasticity takes us. Happiness is a gift of nature. Haven't they told you? I wasn't allowing anyone that day to interfere with my party. I was a smash hit. Of course I was. Everybody had a wonderful time. We were playing great music and having our fill with the finest drinks and snacks considered modern that weekend. My personal fill was reached quickly with all that acid running around my brain. I had been refilling. I even made my mother feel happy about herself and willing to teach all that new musical royalty a lesson in dealing with entitlement. Everybody loves you, Mummy Darling said to Britain's finest. So don't be an ass. Keep the show going. We older monies shall inevitably become less sought after with your rise to fame. That's all right. It is how life works. Just be aware of your responsibility for England's happiness. I remember it was quiet for a short while after those words. Then Mick Jagger assured my mother, "We love our fans. We love how they freak out over us. We're merely opening up society for them." "I hope you will still be saying that in 50 years' time," said Una. Then my mother, my mummy darling, did the craziest thing. She presented me with the keys to a new car to be collected in London. It was another AC Cobra, this time a red one and faster one. I was over the moon. Summer started in dramatic fashion. I had one of those rows with Nicky which started to become all a bit too regular. We were used to shouting at each other. We had always done it because we were both proud people and it helped to let off steam and keep our relationship healthy. But the frequency had gone up so much that it wasn't fun anymore. I'm off, I said at one point. I'm going to see Mike in Liverpool. I got into my beautiful red Cobra and raced all the way to Merseyside, clearing my head through concentrating on the road. Mike took me to a gents-only pub in the centre, where we were happily drinking away and scolding women in general, when suddenly Nicky entered. She had organized a car and had herself delivered to wherever I was, which happened to be this restricted joint she was maneuvered out of before she could tell me I had no right walking out on her while she was arguing. I downed my pint and went outside to tell Nicky I admired her tenacity and how about us all together, she wasn't alone of course, going somewhere else. In the end, we drove back in acceptable mood, Nicky and me, I forcing myself to take it easy. No fast corners and only slightly above the weaselly maximum speed in these quarters. And just that evening, police stopped me. They didn't like my car, or perhaps they liked it too much and wanted to have a better look. Then they saw me and they thought, a rich kid in a Cobra. Let's see if we can nail him. It had nothing to do with me. It was totally their venom. They claimed I had been doing 10 miles over the limit. It was probably true, but I couldn't for the life of me see the infringement in that. Justice thought differently. They made me come to Liverpool, as it had happened shortly after leaving town, and they paraded me there as an example of London depravity, and then they took away my driving license for a full 6 months. Outrageous. I hadn't been driving much different from the rest. It was a minor breach of the highway code. They might have set me up, implying they knew who they were going to find in the Cobra. I had a fine lawyer who was related through a cousin of mine and whom I had first met at Brands Hatch and who would later become a big name in motorsport. But all these superb qualities meant little against the clear will of the whole courtroom to get me punished. And punishing they did. 6 months. That was forever in the way we were dealing with time in those days. I was not a suspended driver. I had stopped being a driver altogether. I had lost my legs. It was strike back season. Many stars were suddenly being busted for drug possession. The Rolling Stones especially had it hard, with Brian, Mick and Keith all arrested and threatened with jail sentences. Even LSD was no longer deemed legal. Michael Hollinshead's home of the trip was raided and he put in prison for almost 2 years, causing the end of easy acid. It was still there, but it was a lot more expensive and quality was variable. From a freely available medicine, LSD had become a drug overnight. That meant knowing people who knew people. Of course, I knew people. Yet the whole trip movement had lost its innocence. We were no longer tripping towards a better world. We were just tripping. Back from my public humiliation, Sir John ordered me at the usual bench under a certain tree. You must be Paul again, did he waste little time. You were going to be on television. I didn't understand. I thought the thing was over, just that one party. We want you to go one step up. Playback with the rest of the band. It's a John Lennon song, so the focus is on him. We want the public to believe they are seeing Paul, even though on close inspection you clearly aren't him. Don't be afraid, everybody is in on the joke, and if you just manage to mimic your friend as well as you talk, then everything should be perfect. There will be a final rehearsal to see if you are up to it. Do it, Tara. Make it a success. We need these data. I wasn't used to hearing Sir John almost pleading. He needn't have done so, by the way, as I could do with an ego boost. The idea of being Paul still attracted me. Besides, now that I was a former driver, it was important to get to know some of the limos I might want to step into. No side entrances for me, please, I bargained. I want to go full frontal. I want people to see me before I go on stage. Like a final exam, you know? If they say, "Hey, who is this guy?" then the show is off. Sir John was silent for a while. Fair enough. You ought not to worry, though. The Beatles are surrounded by highly professional people who don't usually make mistakes. Just follow their leads. And so it was. A few days later, I was called by Beatles management if I could come to Abbey Road next afternoon. I arrived by taxi and was taken to a side room before I could say hi to any of my future bandmates. There, my hair was cut just shorter than my wigs, which was of course modelled after Paul's hair. The Beatles hadn't yet covered their earlobes, and I already had. My hair, or rather my wig, was the only thing in which I could resemble Paul completely. They worked on my eyebrows and gave me some blush, and then I had to mimic Paul in the mirror. I had home practiced, of course, and came down quite convincingly. "You do look like him," the makeup girls congratulated themselves. "I think so too," I smiled. "Now I must be him." The girls cleaned my eyebrows because it was easier now than at night, and then I got to meet the band. John said, "Now that you're Paul, I should treat you nicer, shouldn't I?" George interfered. "That's not Paul, he's Fall." I protested. "Actually, Paul is Fall. I am Paul. Whenever I am him." "Well then, show us what you've got, Paulie. We've got a nice little song for you, Eleanor Rigby." "Isn't that Paul singing? I was promised a background role." "Yeah, we'll put you behind Ringo, don't worry." "I hope neither do you. You know I'm a total faker." John laughed. "TV won't mind. They know how to pass anything for real. Just give it your best." "We always give it our best in the Beatles." "When you sing beautifully," George added, "look beautiful. Look saintly," John said. "Paul has this choir boy look which the girls love." I said, "That's why I was chosen." The sound assistant put on a tape and we playbacked Eleanor Rigby 10 times in a row. The two cameras were following me from different angles. After every 2 or 3 takes, they would show me what I was doing wrong. At the 9th rendering, the team were satisfied. One more for the promotional clip. Again we went. I was moving my bass guitar so much it was hard to see which strings I was playing. My head did the typical Paul bops, and I wore my most charming smile, as George had suggested. I was indeed standing behind the drum kit with George, while John was occupying the front all by himself. The cameras were now applied in a typical TV show manner, with long shots and some close-ups. I was full face a couple of times, but never very long. Everybody thought I made a good Paul. "See you tomorrow at midday, then. Take it easy tonight, Paulie?" I promised and made home. Next day, you could see us on top of the Pops on the 16th of June, 1966. The press were instructed not to see what their well-informed reporters were seeing and to concentrate on what we had to say afterwards. I was quoted a few times, though not always literally, as I may have sounded a teeny-weeny posh. Overall, we were a great success. I was smuggled out of the studio, and then Fall, the real Paul, entered to play himself at the after-party. I was brought back to Abbey Road, where the girls cleaned me up and kissed me for my performance. I don't believe it has been on TV yet, I said. We were told you did great, they laughed back. I thought, can't I be someone every day? I'll do the lot. Call your favorite stand-in, then call it a day. Taxi service included. I stayed home that night to give any wrinkle of suspicion a day to flatten out, and was at the usual places next day. I looked myself and played myself. When Paul dropped in late at night, we had a little public chat of the hey, what's up kind, and then later he came over for a private talk. I knew things were going on, I said. That's why they asked me, to keep it in the family. They want to know how far they can go, said Paul. You did well, you know, but you ain't me. He jovially slung his arm around my skinny shoulder. So who's going to be next then? I wasn't going to say it was him again. That was obvious after 2 rounds. If he didn't want to know, I understood. Somewhere in the summer of 1966, swinging London started popping at the heart seams. We all had become fabulously famous and important. All the hangers-on of yesteryear were today's merchants of the trippy state. We all had shops and galleries and multicolored business models, and our faces were seen in print somewhere. We were there when the interest in trip style exploded beyond what the original inventors could absorb, so it only made sense that we stole from each other to create outlets for the hungry hordes of lassies and lads who finally had the chance to dress up like no one had before. More than about style, trip was about color. When I saw a lorry painted in all the colors of the rainbow, I knew I wanted that too. I'm going to have my car painted, I told Glenn, whom I had granted free use of the Cobra, so as long as he was willing to chauffeur me whenever I felt the need to show up in something more stylish than a London cab. I was tipped about 3 artists from the north who were into coloring furniture. I went to their studio, and of course they were really sweet blokes who loved the idea of doing something outrageous to get their name buzzing round. I had them come over to our place for a chill, and then I showed them the Cobra, which was in my garage. Like everybody, they instantly loved the car. They looked at it and started shouting, then talking, and very quickly came up with a basic design, which they turned into the finished product in about 2 weeks. I adored my new Cobra and was as proud as a peacock. I told Glenn, come with me, please. I need to drive this baby, but I need you to cover for me in case the coppers pull us over. Of course you do, don't worry, said Glenn. Let's bring a cap. Driver wears cap. I chose an old-fashioned racer's cap with ear flaps that tied together under the chin. I left them loose, considering the splendid weather. Isn't that a bit conspicuous? Glenn opined. It is, but not as much as the car. It covers a lot, and I bet they'll have difficulty recognizing me this way. And how am I supposed to put it on without anybody noticing? Push your seat back. I jump on top of you, and you wriggle free and take the wheel. Then change helmets. Glenn thought it through. Could be done in a few seconds. I think so. Just keep your head down and deny everything they throw at you. Emboldened, I drove Fulham Road into town, past Knightsbridge, turned right at Wellington's, past Buckingham Palace and onto King's Road. There was nowhere to speed, just letting the tiger roar after too much purring. I wasn't reveling in it, though, more a cry for help. I had missed my baby. I needed to drive her badly. We left London via Hammersmith and Brentford, direction Oxford, and then turned left as soon as we were out of the city's grip. There I had a chance to let go, to drive my socks off between towns. Isn't this a fantastic car? It is, said Glenn. I said, I may have the car in use on more occasions than we imagined. Photographers want to take pictures of my car. Editors want to talk to me. Fanzines want to know where I live. Cobra may well be a busybody this summer. Sorry for that. It's cool, laughed Glenn. When he said, "This is where I want to go back," I parked and we had a smoke, and then he drove us back, music on the record player and the mood cosmically good. We were driving under a neat star night with the odd cloud blocking the view. "How long is this going to last, Glenn?" I asked. "Is what?" "This whole acid-induced pleasure spin. We all believe ourselves fantastic, and nobody takes care of the consequences." "Do you?" "Well, no, not on an individual level. But I'm a father as well, and I have to give a damn to lease the boys an escape." "Fair enough," said Glenn, "but you're right, it can't last forever. In fact, it can't last much longer." "That's the persuasion I am of as well. It's all starting to drive me a bit crazy. I may need more outings like this." "Understood." The Cobra, of course, got noticed all around. I was being interviewed by French TV, resulting in a short film with the illustrative title Une journée avec l'honorable Tara Brown. That was me in swinging London. I was chatting up Marianne Faithfull, shopping for clothes in Carnaby Street and showing off my record collection while speaking in French, naturellement, about my friendship with Brian Jones. The Cobra also featured and was shot in such a way that nobody could see it was Glenn who did the driving past London's most famous landmarks. Tara was the man. I had managed to keep Amanda out of my life, but not out of my thoughts. When word went round she had shown up again in London, I couldn't wait to engage her to see if she had any feelings left for me. I found her at Granny's, after being tipped she was hanging out there, and one look was enough to fly into each other's arms. While I was naturally inclined to keep our renewed engagement out of the public's eye, to not needlessly hurt Nicky's feelings, it was impossible to refrain from holding hands while walking the streets together. Amanda being Amanda, of course everybody were looking at us, and soon enough rumors were spreading like wildfire. "We can't really do this, Tara," she kept saying. "You are a married man, and I am Amanda Lear. I'm supposed to be single. It's part of my image." "I want to be with you, you know that, but I can't be seen with you too often." So while our bodies were screaming at each other, "I need you now," in public we would pretend to be just friends, only to consume our passion in the privacy of a discreet hotel room. And when she went back to Paris later that summer, I found as many excuses as I needed to visit her.